Right. Name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Sacred Heart of Jesus, we place our trust in you. So, folks, today we are going to talk about the tariffs, Trump's tariff plan. And you say, okay, what does that have to do with being Catholic? It has everything to do with being Catholic because, as we know, one of the four grave sins that calls out for vengeance from heaven is defrauding the worker. So, we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then Jim Maughan, my good friend, and he soon will be yours. He is an expert. He's worked on major bond desks. He's a finance guy, and I cannot think of anybody better than to talk about the tariffs that Trump has laid out and why they are good for the United States. So first, let's talk about why uh, the tariffs are a grave. Why, first of all, the tariff imbalance it has been defrauding the U.S. Worker, and why it's a grave mortal sin. Because from a Catholic standpoint, defrauding of workers' wages, it really is a grave mortal sin. And if you haven't been thinking about this, you really should be, because it violates the dignity of the human person and the just treatment that they deserve for their labor. And Trump cares about that. Catholic social teaching, and it's rooted in the principles of justice and the preferential option, not just for the poor, but for the common worker. It condemns that kind of exploitation. And, as I said at the opening, it cries out for vengeance from heaven. It's one of the four, the big four, that, it'll drive you straight to hell. And what are a couple of the others? Abortion, like murder, and sodomy. So it ranks up there. The argument that President Trump's tariffs plans could help address this issue, particularly in the context of jobs being shipped overseas due to unfair trade practices, is obviously going to help us because what he wants to do is impose reciprocal tariffs, such as baseline 10% on all imports and higher rates, sometimes up to 25% on countries like China, Canada, and Mexico, which have historically maintained incredibly higher tariffs on US goods. And you say, okay, why is this a big issue? This imbalance incentivizes corporations to relocate their manufacturing jobs overseas where we know the labor's cheaper and often at the expense of American workers' livelihoods. And you know what? By leveling the playing field, these tariffs will discourage these offshore strategies and encourage companies to bring that production back into the United States and restore jobs with fair wages, aligning with the Catholic call to ensure workers receive their just compensation for their labor. So, where is this? Where is this? If you look at doctrine, it's actually quoted right in Rerum Novarum, where Pope Leo the 13th, and even in later encyclicals like Populorum Progressio by Pope Paul the Sixth, they emphasize that workers have a right to fair wages for their family life. And when jobs are outsourced to all these other countries with lower labor standards, where workers are paid far less than a living wage, corporations effectively are defrauding both those overseas workers, which nobody really is thinking about them, and the American worker, but by denying them opportunities for just employment. So Trump's tariffs, by making it costlier for those imported goods produced with cheap foreign labor, is pressuring companies to get back to the United States and produce those goods domestically. And this shift is not only going to create jobs here in the United States again, it's going to strengthen our bargaining power of American workers and reduce the downward pressure on wages by creating, I mean, we should know this, by creating global competition. But we have all the liberal media heads talking about how horrible it is. But those same media heads, including Obama himself, was touting equal tariffs when he was in office. So it's
Right.
nonsense. It's nonsense.
Yes.
So, I'm going to hand it over to you because I've been talking a lot and ask you to, talk a little bit about, because you're the expert, Jim, on what you think about all this.
Great. Vicki, first of all, it's awesome to be here with you. I love conversations with you in this area because you come at it from a risk management perspective,
Yeah,
and I kind of come at it from a fixed income interest rate perspective on Wall
sure.
Street. Yeah, so I mean we've had great conversations. I'm a huge fan of your organization, so get that out of the way. Real quick, I was a Wall Street guy. My last position was I was managing director of bonds at BB&T Capital Markets, and basically the point about that is 27 years in that business, you understand the tea leaves. You talk about this stuff all day long. And I'm going to tell a quick story before we get started. I was a young guy on Wall Street, years ago, and I'm talking to this older guy who was a mentor to me. And I said to him, he explained to me this tariff thing. And he said, do you ever notice that everything's like produced outside of the country? It was just starting then, right? And he explained to me that, well, for us to sell our goods in Germany, South Korea, Japan, we have to, there's a tariff on it, we have to pay X, but for them to sell, there's no tariff. And I just said, what? And so I looked into it, right? And I said, well, there were some very good reasons for it at the beginning. After, post World War II, this is where this all starts, and you really need to understand this. Post World War II, well, Europe was starving, literally starving. Okay, so was Japan, and so it was an excellent move by the United States government in order to, again, that word incentive, provide incentive for them to get to work. And there was a lot of reasons for it, and all those reasons were valid. Okay, and this wasn't strictly altruism, because at the end of the day, use a cliche, then we would have a viable trading partner, right? Fair enough. So then all of a sudden, fast forward, and we're what, 70 years since the end of World War II, and I forgot about this, right? Because I really did a deep dive on this years ago. It just seems so crazy to me. And then, you have to say this about Donald Trump. He asks some interesting questions, right? The first interesting question was, why are we in NATO, right? And I was like, really interesting question. Why are we spending all this money in NATO? I mean, no one ever asked that question. And he was the guy that had the temerity to bring up this tariff issue. And it all came flooding back. And that's why it's very timely. I'm going, he's absolutely right. Here's the deal, right? What he's doing is, and by the way, last I checked, 50 nations are at the bargaining table right now. So it's working, right? That's very, like, literally behind the scenes. Sorry,
Bravo.
yeah, exactly. And I go, and it really, I hate to say this, why did he have to be stopped? Right? Again, the mentor I was talking about told me something very, very really central to my thinking, and I never forgot it. Because I go, how could this be going on? He said, everything's a racket, kid. Everything. So I would ask you, why is, call it the deep state, particularly the Democrats, why are they going nuts over USAID? The grift is up. Why did they have to put the guy in jail? Why did they take 2 attempts on his life?
Yes.
Why did all this lawfare happen? They tried to destroy him at every venue. I mean, this guy is placed there by God. I'm convinced of it. So he has the courage to do this, right? So long story short, now we got these tariffs. And he says, you know what? This tariff gig's over. All right. Here's the deal. Whatever tariff you have, right? I'm going to put it on you as well. And then we'll come to the negotiating table, right? And it's working. Right now, just one example of how it's working. Oracle, Apple, $1 trillion investment in infrastructure in the United States, reading the tea leaves, understanding that now they have to build an infrastructure. One, that's with a T, trillion. There are others on board. All of these guys are getting on board because now all of a sudden there's a massive dislocation, a needed dislocation in the global markets, right? Number one, back to the Catholic perspective, because this is what was wrapping this whole thing up. Now, I tell you something, and this is something that at least anecdotally, everyone will understand. The Democrats are big, and by the way, I'm not a Republican, right? I'm an independent. I'm not a fan of Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell and all these other guys, right? They're all part of this mess. Who's kidding who? The Republicans never said a word about this for 50 years, right? So I just really want to say that, right? But the Democrats are particularly egregious. So now they wrap themselves in virtue, which is what they always do, right? They wrap themselves in virtue, and they're like, and they go, no, we got to help. I'm going, what are you talking about? Here's got to be the end result here. What he's trying to do. Okay, the people, they're always, now all of a sudden they care about the stock market, right? Before, the stock market didn't matter, right? But now, and they have a brilliant go-to strategy. If this, then that, right? And they always have backup plans. I mean, the Republicans really need to take a page from this because they're killing them on this. And so now all of a sudden they're really concerned about everyone's 401ks. Well, let me tell you something from a Catholic perspective. Half the country doesn't have 401ks.
Mm.
right? Half the country is living paycheck to paycheck, and half the country is going to food banks now. Okay, and I'd
Yeah.
like to point out East Palestine, Ohio, North Carolina. All right, they don't care about these guys. They're the
Yes.
deplorables, the great unwashed, right? And what I'm saying to you is the number. You start looking at things like these people have been left out of the global game. Starting with, I'm going to say NAFTA. That's when it really took off. I don't know, Vic, would you agree with that NAFTA? I'm going to demark that.
Well, I think that's brilliant what you're talking about that NAFTA, because the NAFTA thing is
Yes,
was the worst decision that we ever made.
100%.
It shipped those jobs to
Right out of here.
Mexico.
Yep.
I
And
you know, I grew up in Detroit, with they call them the big three automakers,
yes, right.
and it literally demolished.
It demolished it. Detroit, which was a vibrant city, I mean, Grosse Pointe, all these areas, Detroit was absolutely a vibrant city. Anyone been to Detroit in the last 20 years?
Yeah.
It looks like Yucca Flats after the blast, right? I mean, like seriously, the entire city is one big ghetto. And this is bought and paid for by politicians. This is what happened. Now, this is the next key point. I just want to make this right. Now we have the hedge fund guys, the corporate guys, and they care about one thing and one thing only. And as Catholics, we have to think deeper. All right. They care about one thing. They care about the bottom line. So they're not really too concerned about the average Joe who's
Mm.
dying of deaths of despair, who's on, and I'm not overstating this, who has to go to the food bank to make ends meet. You want to talk about soul crushing, right? You quoted Rerum Novarum before, and it's an excellent encyclical to read because this is the point. We owe man dignity. This is not about bottom line. This is about dignity. And when a guy's got to do that, what's left? You know what's left? Opioids, fentanyl. He's already had 50 years of being blasted for toxic masculinity. He's already been beaten up every day of his life from school on out. And here we are. So, from a Catholic standpoint, we owe our country first. I think J.D. Vance did a wonderful example of
Mm.
explaining the hierarchy. Okay. It's almost a form of, I think, Aquinas, I'm going to get this completely wrong, but subsidiarianism almost, where it goes from I owe a debt to my family first, then my community, right? You know what I'm saying? I think it was Aquinas. Yeah. And it was brilliant. Sorry.
Or Ordos Amoris, and
That's
and
it.
it's
Order
the
of love.
order of love.
Yes, that's
Oh,
it. That's
Jim,
brilliant.
you are on fire.
and so this is what I'm talking about. So now you have these guys, right? Again, it's a Catholic principle of subsidiarianism. We go from the ground up. The family is a representation of the hierarchy of heaven. That's what it is, right? And it's like, so I have a response. All of these people, these families, they've lost hope. They really have. They've lost hope. And so these are the deaths of despair. And COVID was just a coup de grace.
Yeah.
COVID nailed them, right? So
Yeah.
fast forward. Let's get back to the Catholic point. It's not political. This is really our responsibility as a Catholic. All right. What Donald Trump is trying to do is to go into the tariff market to use it as a bargaining chip. Right. Number one. Number two, he understands very, very well. And I was really shocked at this, but we're really blessed as a nation. We have the infrastructure, we have the resources, we have the inland waterways, we have shipping, we have a workforce, right? All of these things that other people don't. And you know what? We also have the upper hand, right?
Mhm.
So, and he's the first guy to really realize that. So all the grifters who are getting rich off this are coming out of the woodwork. And his point is this. And I had one guy on X gave me a hard time going, no manufacturing jobs are coming back. This is all for coders, right? No, it's not true. All right. No, $1 trillion investment. You got commercial real estate. You have ancillary businesses that come out of that. You got coders, but you also have manufacturing because that's the gig, right? You get manufacturing. Go ahead, Vicki. Sorry.
Yeah, manufacturing actually is coming back
Absolutely.
because after he announced the 25% auto tariffs, Nissan, all these
Imagine
auto, they
that.
said they're moving all of their production here.
Exactly.
So, I mean, praise be to God.
Exactly. And this is why I was so honored. I love your organization. I love you. And you brought me on here because I'm going, people,
Yeah.
here's what you got to remember out of all of this. Okay. Nothing to quote my mentor for years, a great guy. Nothing's on the level. Okay. Nothing. So why are these guys, attacking Doge? Why are they attacking? Because what this is about, the grift is up. Okay. Trump's going to use these tariffs, right? And bottom line, there's going to be a slight dislocation. I mean, my portfolio got hammered. All right. That's the way it goes. Right. But it's like, but I have an obligation to shut up about that because we're talking about giving people their lives back. Look, I don't have to tell you. And I think it was this, I can't remember his name, the Secretary of Treasury, the new guy. He made this point. He goes, what's his name?
Bissett, Scott
Thank you.
Bissett.
I did blank for a second. You
Hmm.
know, he's a he's a button down guy. Okay, I mean, I'm telling you, this guy knows, and I didn't realize this about the man, but he does boots on the ground. Like he goes out there. So he said, I went to, and I actually took a few days off, and I went to food banks. And I go, what? You know, I said, now you got my attention, right? And he
Right.
goes, you know, and he said, and he asked the one question, what are you guys seeing here? He goes, you know what I'm seeing here? I'm seeing a lot of broken men coming in here because they don't
Oh,
have, they're not necessarily looking for the food. They're looking for the top off. Like, I don't have enough this month.
yeah.
So I need a top off. It's like, and he said, you know, some of them, he said, you know, he even spoke to a few of them. I'm going to pay you back.
Mm.
Oh,
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
does that make me sad? That
Yes.
makes me so sad. It is, yeah, I mean, you said it. It's really all about the dignity
Oh,
of
it
the
is.
person.
And
And,
that's our Catholic thing. We have to do that.
and
Vicki, can I say one more thing? It's like, if I could, then you
yeah,
take it because you're 100% right. If we, the globalist, or I'll call it the globalist satanic, call it WEF guys, they could care less, but they love this. We saw that in COVID, right?
mm,
We have a responsibility as cat. They left those guys behind, and I'm saying to you, they left those guys behind on purpose. They left those guys. They were the deplorables. Yeah, figure something out. When Joe Biden blithely commented, "Go code," I wanted to strangle him when he said that. Go code, right? And you saw the devastation in Detroit. This is by design. As Catholics, my point is the globalists left these people behind by design, and the time is to really, really, as an American, you've got to take a little time to really understand these principles. There's a moral imperative now more than ever. It's not that hard. Just really understand the entire, and you and I both know the entire finance world is predicated on using jargon and getting people intimidated to get away with what you want. I love,
absolutely.
yeah, I love being at dinner with some young, you know, they call them finance bros, and he's going off. So I'm like, really, there, kid? All right, good. So you know, throwing terms around, it's like it's not that complicated. It really isn't. Here's the bottom
Hmm.
line: there's an impediment with us selling our products overseas, and that impediment is financial, and it's called tariffs. Okay, Trump's
Yeah,
leveling that playing field, and now we're going to negotiate. Now we have an obligation to get behind this as Catholic, because to your point, Vicki, the dignity of man. You don't give a man dignity by handing him a bag of food. You give that man dignity by giving him a viable job.
yeah. Oh my
That's,
gosh, so well said. And I really am glad you're talking about the global elites
oh,
because I think they are behind, these imbalanced
so,
tariffs. I think they're benefiting from the imbalanced tariffs. I think they want to see Trump's plan tank because I think they are, what I'd say shorting the market
yes,
because
wow, great term. Right.
yeah,
Sorry.
for people that don't understand that, they are betting that the market will tank and then profiting off of that. They are profiting off of the misery of, mom and pop, Joe Blow, the American worker. Trump will say America first. I'd almost say he is for the worker first.
No
He
kidding.
is
He is.
he is just for the common, woman and man, you
He,
know?
oh, so true. He sees the dignity of the common woman and man. He really, really does. He sees the dignity of the family. And look at the vitriol against them. Look at they're not even, this is insane. Okay. The rhetoric out there is insane. Anything that man does, and he was brilliant when he brought it up in that quasi State of the Union, if you want to call it that. I don't care. I could tell you, I cured cancer. You would still hate this. This is satanic, right? It's like all of these groups are behind, and they're not even, these people don't even think rationally. You know,
Exactly.
there's no
Ex-
there's no longer a discussion anymore. And do not underestimate the power of these people, because this is their religion. Okay, do not underestimate that. And I can prove it's their religion, because it's all done on faith. It's all done in lockstep. It's almost a cult, and it's and
yes.
it's specifically anti-Christian,
Yeah.
anti-Western civilization, which is synonymous.
I really do think you hit it on the head. I think it's a cult. I think it's probably
Yes,
satanic. It's demonic. It
it is
really
demonic.
is demonic, and I'm going to go as far as to say that balancing the imbalance of the trade plan will bring solidarity to all nations because if I if a woman and a man in a marriage are coming together, it is all about give and take, and it is about balance between them. If if the woman is constantly winning and constantly getting her way on
Yeah,
everything, that is not solidarity. That is not a union.
yeah,
That is not creating any kind of joy, I mean, it, and I look at all these nations, and all it is what can I bilk the United States for?
that's their business plan, Vicki.
It
And
is.
that's their business plan. And this is so, what you just said just like hit me between the eyes. It's so astounding. It's like, so you charge us, go to Germany and find an American car. I dare you. Or South Korea. There's this not
You're,
there.
and they
It's not,
and they hate us. They hate us. They're like spoiled children who get
yes,
everything from us and then they detest us for it. I mean,
it's
it's like, oh my gosh.
100%. Europe is a classic example of that.
Mm,
I mean, Europe is a perfect example of that. They have developed, call it again, probably the French Revolution, but Europe has developed, a nanny state, right? And we pay for it
yes.
because you can't. And now, and I'm telling you, I'm sorry, it's entrenched in their culture. Go to France, talk to somebody in France, and they're like, "Well, pay for health insurance? What are you crazy?" And this is what's going on. Look what they did, and now they're coming out of hiding. Look what they did recently to Marine Le Pen. Okay, Marine
Yeah.
Le Pen,
Oh,
all of these things. Anyone
oh,
who represents what Donald Trump is talking about, they're going after hard because
yeah.
this to them, this is the firewall, right? This can't happen. They just put Le Pen 2 years probation, 2 years house arrest, I believe, and she can't
Yeah.
run for office. I mean,
Yeah.
she got
Sh-
almost 35% of the vote.
She was the leading candidate in France against Macron and his male spouse. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. It is the most disgusting example
Yes,
of communism. It's
yes,
it's it's
you're right. Sorry,
downright fascism. It's downright
it's
fascism.
down. It is.
They're jailing.
You're jailing people.
He's jailing his top political opponents.
Rival. This is what they do in banana republics. Okay,
Oh
and
my
go right,
gosh.
Vicky, go
All
right
right.
down the
Well, we're
line.
digressing. We're
Yeah, sorry about that.
digressing, but
Yeah,
yeah, to
thank
bring
you.
it back, you've been so brilliant, and thank you for crystallizing this for us. We have to pray that Trump's plan really does succeed because Trump's plan, folks, if you didn't understand it, it is so Catholic
It is.
because he is eliminating one of the things that was causing a grave moral sin in America and throughout the world, and he is righting a wrong. He is righting a wrong for US workers and really overseas workers, and he's restoring their dignity. Any
Yes.
final closing comments, Jim?
Oh, I'll steal a line from you, Vicky. Put on the armor of God. Okay.
I
I
love
mean,
it.
like, I mean it because this is we're in some really dark times. And look, the closing comment I would say is pay attention. Really,
Mm,
it's you no longer have the ability to just ignore all this and pretend it's going away. It's not going away. These people are energized and they're not going to quit. It's going to require fighting, and you can start by supporting. You don't have to support the president, but you can support him on an issue basis. And this one issue of tariffs is Catholic. And that's
yeah.
all I got, Vicki. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. God bless you as always, Jim. You're a real crusader. I appreciate you.
You too, Vicki. You guys do great work, and thanks for having me on. I'm honored. I really mean
All
it.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Bye
Bye bye.
now.
See you, Vic.
All right. Take care.